And it says, as of August 2025, glyphosate spraying continues to be a significant concern in various forest and protected areas, including national parks and crown lands, with recent developments in Nova Scotia and Ontario highlighting ongoing controversy. It's raised concerns about its impact on forest diversity, fire resilience, and potential human health risks.
Disrupt America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. So continuing with the situation of the wildfires that are occurring in Atlantic provinces right now, and even in coming places like here in Ontario, it's absolutely bonkers and crazy to know what exactly is going on, because it seems like the premiers are more focused on cracking down on their own civilians walking in the forest to the tune of $28,000 than they would actually solving and preventing more of these forest fires from occurring. That's what it seems to me. Everything's been pretty much speculative because we don't know further information on the situation. But this new alarming detail that I discovered is just adding more fuel to the fire, pun intended. Because this doesn't do well for the situation. It just adds more to the chaos. So from the Halifax Examiner, Nova Scotia approves glyphosate spraying on 3,577 acres of drought-stricken, fire-prone forest area. Now, for those who kind of remember something about glyphosate, or maybe it's catching in the back of your mind, oh, I think I've heard of that before. Glyphosate is the prominent chemical used in products like Roundup. And Roundup, in particular, the manufacturer, has been sued numerous times over and over and over again because of how harmful this chemical is, how harmful it is for human health, that people develop cancers, that people develop immune deficiencies, that they sued the manufacturer that this herbicide doesn't actually help plants, doesn't help human life, doesn't help natural process, and is actually killing more than it's saving. And now it's been confirmed by the province of Nova Scotia that they're going to spray this onto the forest area, the same forest area they don't want people hiking, they don't want people camping, they don't want people having outdoor recreational activity, and the same forests that are currently prone to wildfires, which this chemical is very highly flammable. As I stated, you're adding more fuel to the fire in this situation, pun intended. And it's not even just Nova Scotia that's having this. According to Table Salt, it's also happening here in Ontario. It says, breaking, North Bay residents are going to have glyphosate or Roundup airdropped right into their own backyard. And this is directly from the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources. This is what they tweeted out. The approved aerial herbicide project for the Nipissing Forest will be sprayed starting on or about August 20th, 2025. And they give a little bit of a map here. You can see here, there's North Bay, there's the Nipissing Forest. So all this area is going to be sprayed with a harmful toxinogen deployed onto the forest, deployed onto residents. And it's been administered by the Natural Resources Ministry of Ontario. And these are areas also prone to wildfires. So this just adds more suspicion to the idea that premiers are not interested in stopping these forest fires. There is no intent, there is no interest in stopping these forest fires because they're adding a chemical that's highly flammable and highly toxic to these areas that could potentially go up in flames. It's absolutely crazy. And you can see there's Verner, Ontario there, North Bay, Sunridge. You can see somewhere in that map, south part of it is actually where my family's cottage is in that area. But it's happening in more places in Ontario. This is from the Ministry of Natural Resources again, approving aerial herbicide for the North Shore forest. So that includes Elliott Lake, that includes Espanola, that includes the Blind River. That's actually a place here in Ontario, the Blind River. I think that's where Stevie Wonder vacationed. But and they also approved it for Pick Forest. That's actually a thing, Pick Forest, BIC. And that is in the area of northern Ontario. There's Long Lac, there's Geraldton, and it's right by a First Nations reservation. So they're spraying this glyphosate all across these different regions, all across these heavily forest areas that they claim is prone to forest fires, that climate change is doing devastation, and yet they're going to spray toxinogens onto these forest areas that are highly flammable and toxic to human health to prevent these forest fires. We don't even know for sure why they're doing this. So, someone asked, I think this is from Grok or one of the AIs. Someone asked about this. Are they spraying glyphosate in national parks across Canada? And it says, as of August 2025, glyphosate spraying continues to be a significant concern in various forest and protected areas, including national parks and crown lands, with recent developments in Nova Scotia and Ontario highlighting ongoing controversy. And you can see here, they break down Nova Scotia. The Nova Scotia government approved glyphosate spraying on 3,500 acres of forest in August 2025, a move criticized for increasing fire hazards during a prolonged drought that has diminished water supplies critical for firefighting. I think I've heard this one before. That we're seeing these scenarios over and over again. That almost seems like it's a timely event. That, a fire breaks out. It's destroying buildings. It's destroying the forest. People need to be evacuated. People need to go outside of these danger zones. Oh, surprise, surprise. We don't have the water resources to combat the fires. Just like, California, just like Maui, just like BC, just like Saskatchewan, just like Jasper. It just all seems too familiar. It all seems too familiar to have this over and over and over again and thinking this is just a natural disaster or a natural occurring event. And there's Ontario there. Aerial glyphosate spraying is currently active in forest areas such as Sudbury, Tamangi, Dryden, and others. So they're spraying a toxic chemical into these forest areas while they're claiming that these areas are prone to forest fires. A toxic chemical that's highly flammable. And we don't really know why. They're not even telling us why. They're just telling us that's happening. So, this is from this is North Bay's little website here, baytoday.ca. And Nipissing First Nations call on province to halt the glyphosate spraying. So, First Nations communities are angry about this. They're angry that this toxic chemical is being sprayed down onto their reservations, spraying into their forests, and no one's saying anything about this. So they're making some noise in front of the MPP's office. This guy here, and it says First Nations. Excuse me. Sorry. Nipissing First Nation hosted a rally today outside Nipissing MPP Vic Fideli's office at 219 Main Street in North Bay. urging the provincial government to stop spraying glyphosate-based herbicides over Nipissing Forest, which is Nipissing traditional territory. Fedeli was not in his office and at the time of writing has not issued a statement regarding the rally. Curtis Avery, Environment Minister for NFN, helped to organize the rally, which at around 10 a.m. had about 50 supporters lining the sidewalks in front of Fedeli's office. They're spraying the herbicide directly over areas where people are using those resources and occupying the land. These are places where we bring our youth and our children to play and learn. Glyphosate is the main chemical in Roundup, a weed killer used to kill plants and underbrush to make space for tree crops like pine. Sections of the Nipissing Forest are set to be sprayed on or around August 20th, 2025. The NFN detailed in a release, Nipissing First Nation does not agree with spraying of the glyphosate over large areas of forest for forest management. This is conflicting data on how these chemicals and their byproducts are affecting human beings. There is also no solid scientific proof that they are safe for our traditional resources, the animals and the plants that we have, as the Nishanbig, how you say it? Nishimig harvest. The NFN wants the spraying to stop. Councillor Samantha Stevens attended the protest and told Bay Today's NFN's council has been advocating for a halt to glyphosate spraying since at least 2021. Nipissing First Nations took a stance against the government, saying we do not agree to any spraying of the sort. So, the First Nations communities are obviously alarmed by this. And I think a lot of Canadians are being alarmed by this, knowing that they're familiar with the term glyphosate, knowing that this chemical is being sprayed down onto areas at a time where we're being told that forest fires are occurring. It's prone to these areas. We're not allowed to walk outside, enjoy nature, connect with nature, go hiking, go fishing, go swimming, go have recreational activities outside and being fined for it, but they're allowed to spray these forest areas with highly regarded toxic chemicals that's been facing lawsuits for many, many years. Many, many years. So, in BC, get this. It says, in BC, forestry companies have historically used glyphosate and other herbicides on cut blocks, areas that forests have been logged to control the growth of competing vegetation, primarily aspen, and favor conifer trees for timber production. So that's what they're claiming. That's what forest ministers and other people are claiming, that this is for to kill the weeds. This is for timber production. This is for trying to transform these forest areas instead of having just natural occurring biodiversity, that they want to regulate and control these forest areas for timber production. But get this practice, while aimed at maximizing timber yields, has raised concerns about its impact on forest diversity, fire resilience, and potential human health risks. So, man manipulating nature to get the highest amount of trees for timber doesn't realize that this doing stuff like this, spraying a toxinogen into these areas, actually increases the chance of fires, increases the chance of human health deterioration. And this is something that's been going on for quite some time. They spray your food with this in a lot of areas. Monsanto buys up a lot of farmland across North America and purposely spray good vegetation, good crops with this toxinogen. And they claim that it's beneficial, that it's preventing pests, that it's a pesticide, a herbicide. It's killing the weeds. But it's also killing you. It's also killing you. Anyone that comes in contact with this chemical. That's why there's been so many active lawsuits against the manufacturer of Roundup, against the manufacturer that uses glyphosate. So there's the Nipissing First Nations statement calling the Ontario government to stop harmful glyphosate spraying in Nipissing Forest. So Indigenous woman pointed this out, says fire Bill 5 and the resource grab on treaty land. Look at these two maps. One shows wildfires across Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, many marked out of control. So you can see they got it highlighted in the first map there. The other map shows mineral deposits: lithium, cobalt, potash, nickel, and uranium. Most of them untouched because they sit on treaty land. You can see that these two areas look very familiar. And just like we saw with Nova Scotia in the announcement that they immediately reversed a 50-year ban on uranium mining, a 50-year ban on uranium mining got reversed prior to the forest fires that are occurring. And uranium, much like lithium, cobalt, potash, nickel, these are all the critical minerals that are used to develop the future of gadgets and technology, and especially with Canada increasing its production of electric vehicles and mandating people to have electric vehicles, and the increasing of AI technology. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me that this is intentionally done to evacuate these areas that they know that there's highly amounts of critical minerals in their soil, in the grounding areas that residential areas are on. So they have to come up with something. And just like we've seen with Hawaii and California and North Carolina and all these different areas that spontaneously have a natural disaster occur, all of a sudden we're seeing this information about legislation that opens up these areas that have been heavily hit with these natural disasters for mining, for land development, so that investors can go in and purchase the property at a cheap rate. So, like I said, anything is possible because we are not being told properly about anything about these forest fires. We're not being told what's causing them, what's starting them. We're not doing anything to prevent more of these from occurring. But we are doing everything we can to stop people from enjoying summer and preventing them from walking into a forest. So, this woman here, Ontario woman on Canadian wildfires and the uranium conspiracy theory, she's going to break down what she thinks is happening.
I'm watching all this news about the fires in Nova Scotia, and then there are all these conspiracy theories that the government's setting them and keeping people out of the woods because the government just lifted these uranium mining bans, and there's like uranium all over Nova Scotia, and so they might be doing what they did in Hawaii, and actually there's an area in Chile where they did this too, and in LA where they will go in after a burn, developers, and then they can develop the land easier because they can perch it easier because it's all burnt. And I think that it should be of lesser value. And I thought it very odd that there was a fire that started in Kawartha Lakes in Ontario, because we don't really get like a whole lot of fires around here. The forest is like quite wet usually, so I just found it very strange. And so I looked it up. I just asked if there was uranium in the Kawartha Lakes region, and like, look at this. there is. So,
Go figure. Go figure. These magically spontaneous wildfires that just happen, just out of coincidence, to mean areas that they confirmed there's uranium under. Just a coincidence, right? No concern, no questioning, no suspicion, no asking the premiers, stuff like that. But we should go after people and scream at each other for walking into the forest. They're now trying to snitch on people. That's a thing. I thought we lived through COVID. I thought we were done. This snitch and tell process, this yelling at each other over what rules to follow and being complicit to authoritarianism. I thought we'd been past that. I thought we learned from that. But it turns out people will just go by and not question the suspicion of these wildfires. They'll just be complicit. They'll shut up and do what they're told. Even though glyphosate is being sprayed onto these areas, which is going to exacerbate more of these wildfires, and knowing stuff like this, it's just adding more suspicion, adding more fuel to the fire. Pun intended. And here, there's this doctor here. He's going to explain to you why glyphosate is damaging to life on Earth. That this supposed herbicide that they're using to crack down on, outside vegetation and weeds and trying to build up the trees for lumber. That's what BC is at least saying. How it's damaging to human health. He's going to explain that over years of spraying these chemicals have damaged a lot of our society's function and health. Watch this.
Disease epidemic broke out in the 1990s like something nobody could have ever possibly imagined, with 1991 being the first time we added glyphosate to wheat. And so your residues on wheat suddenly went through the roof by 1993, and suddenly I'm the first generation doctors to suddenly watch this whole sweep of autoimmune systems. At the same time, our children suddenly presented attention deficit disorder. And so when you take a chemical and add it to the food system in 1976 that starts to weaken the ability, lower the metabolic life force of mitochondria, by late 80s, when you get an accumulation of fat in the liver, you end up with type 2 diabetes. By the early 90s, the most energy demanding organ system in the body is being affected, which is your immune system. So this is allergy. Suddenly kids are not allergic to peanuts, they're allergic to just about everything you can think of. By mid 90s, you see this explosion of autoimmune disease. And so this is where the immune system is so reactive against everything you're eating, breathing, etc. Suddenly you become reactive to everything. And so your own organ system becomes your enemy. By 2002, 1 in 4 young girls in the United States by age 12 has antibodies to her own thyroid gland. So glyphosate is the foundation of leaky gut, and it's the foundation of obesity, diabetes, and then immune system overloads. It was just like we could not suddenly keep up with this level of disease. By the early 2000s, we've moved into the cancer epidemic, so leukemias, lymphomas, solid tumors, not going up like 10% or 20%, going up like 300%, 1,000%. In 5-year increments. So we've gone from obesity, diabetes, allergy, autoimmunity, chronic pain, neurologic dysfunction, down to cancer, early 2000 or late 2000s, infertility.
And this is all stemmed from glyphosate.
Glyphosate is in the clothing, it's in the water that you're showering with, it's everywhere. We're currently using 2 billion kilograms of glyphosate a year on the planet.
Wow.
And so after infertility, there's one more step as you lower the metabolism of a species, and that's loss of gender.
So, there you go. It's damaging to life forms. It's damaging to the survival of life on the planet. That's making us sicker. It's making us weaker. It's damaging our immunity. It's damaging to our health. And the natural minister of resources in Ontario is openly admitting to the use of glyphosate spraying these areas at a time where we're supposed to be on high alert for forest fires because of climate change. So, it's a very, very all suspicious. It's very, very suspicious to this entire situation. And people should be on high alert, not because of climate change or the induce of forest fires, but be on high alert on what politicians have on their sleeve in regards to these forest fires. Are there areas that these fires are occurring that have natural resources and critical minerals that, thanks to Bill C-5, the Canadian government, the provinces are desperately seeking to extract from the grounds, that they're killing off residential areas, that they want to evacuate areas. And the best way to do so is have a natural disaster occur. Like I said, look what happened with Maui. Look what happened with California. Look what happened with North Carolina. Look what happened with Texas. It just seems too frequent and too, it just seems like such a coincidence that these just keep occurring and nobody's questioning it. Nobody's up in arms about the suspicion of this, knowing all these details, knowing that information is out there to understand why there's so much suspicion to these forest fires, and yet nothing's really being done about it. But at least the First Nations are concerned about this, and they're willing to step up and fight.